Okay, President Chen, go ahead.
Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Today is Thursday, October 7th, and is now 5:31. I am calling our regularly scheduled and closed session meetings of the Santo City School District Board of Trustees meeting to order. And we are going to immediately recess to closed session, where we will have 3 items to discuss. Item 2.1, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release. Item 2.2, Conference with Legal Counsel, Existing Litigation, Government Code Section 54956.9, Student versus San Mateo City School District for the following case, LRF 3202100816. And finally, item 2.3, Government Code Section 54957, Public Employee Discipline Dismissal Release District Office Reorganization. And with that, I will recess us to closed session. Thank you.
Okay, President Chen, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining. We are reconvening our meeting at 6:38 p.m. It's our regular session meeting. We are having some technical issues, and we are going to be working through them through the meeting. But we have nothing to report out of closed session. And the first thing up on our agenda is our flags. So if everyone would please unmute and say the pledge after me, with me. Ready? Begin. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for that. We'll do roll call. Trustee Corzo.
Here.
Trustee Proctor.
Here.
Thank you. I hear you. Trustee Watkins.
Here.
And Trustee Warren.
Here.
I don't think you heard
Here.
No. I don't think it picked it up, did.
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I just want to make sure that it's on record, and I'm here as well. So let the record reflect that all the board of trustees are here. Next is item 3.4, which is approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion, Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. Approval of the minutes, September 23rd.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Corzo for the motion, Trustee Proctor for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So the minutes have been approved. Next up is our resolution. Superintendent Ochoa, do you want to lead us off, or is someone else going to mention something about this resolution?
I will unmute there. Thank you very much, President Chen. Resolution number 8-2122 is honoring the district's administrators and declaring October 10th through October 16th, 2021 as the week of the school administrator. Whereas the strong leadership, resilience, dedication, and hard work of administrators in our district has supported the successful return to school in person for staff and 11,000 students. And whereas the title school administrator is a broad term that includes many that work in the district office and other departments to ensure that students have nutritious meals, the district remains fiscally solvent, students and families have access to technology, children have high quality care after school, and new buildings are being constructed to support learning. Yep. And?
No, we'll let Trustee Corzo go.
Yep.
Whereas dedicated leaders have persevered through the ongoing pandemic by first and foremost prioritizing the health and well-being of students and staff by contact tracing for positive cases, keeping students in quarantine, connected to school, doing wellness checks, and ensuring that children have access to meals and transportation. And
whereas school administrators have reimagined their roles to meet the challenges of the ongoing pandemic by working alongside their staffs to support COVID pool testing, substituting in classrooms, implementing health and safety guidelines, and pivoting at a moment's notice when it changes. And
whereas administrators are lead learners who work hard to stay focused on improving instruction for students by attending professional development alongside their staff, collaborating with their colleagues to share best practices, and supporting staff so they can focus on teaching and learning. And
whereas school administrators understand the importance of family engagement by partnering with PTA to provide opportunities to connect on campus through math and literacy nights, connecting families to community resources, and scheduling coffee chats to share information. And
whereas school leaders team with parents, volunteers, and community partners to meet the needs of our most vulnerable students and families by conducting home visits, making donations to support the Education Foundation Gala, and increasing intervention services to accelerate learning. And
whereas school leadership is more important than ever to mitigate learning loss for students and support their social and emotional well-being. And
whereas the state of California has declared the week of October 10th through the 16th, 2021 as the week of the school administrator per Education Code 44015.1. And
therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees strongly encourages all members of the district community to join us in personally expressing appreciation to our school leaders for their dedication and commitment to the San Mateo Foster City School District.
great, thank you everyone for reading this resolution. I know it's a really important week to recognize our administrators. I know this is up for a vote. We will vote on it because it's part of the resolution, but does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion, but I also just wanted to say that after I got done reading kind of my first part there, I like sighed because I'm like, whew, it was a big lift this past year, and it's been definitely a memorable one with a lot of work from our administrators. So we want to thank you all so much.
Do you want to include a motion there and we'll continue the conversation, or?
I'm happy to make a motion. Yes,
Okay. Make
a
the
motion to approve this resolution.
I'll second.
Great, thank you for the motion, Trustee Corzo, and the second, Trustee Watkins. I'll just leave it open for any further comments before we actually call for the vote. Anybody else want to say anything?
Just to echo, thanks to all of the administrators. It's been an incredibly challenging last almost 2 years now. And so just, the job is challenging and so important always, and especially now. And so we've been really fortunate to have such strong, dedicated leaders in this work. And so we're really appreciative. Some of them who are in our audience right now, thank you. But really, really just grateful that, that we know that our kids and their families are in your hands and under your care. So thank you for going above and beyond.
I'll just say ditto to all of that. Thank you to the school administrators for everything that you do. Thank you for this year's definitely different than last year. So thank you for making this school year as normal as we can in a sense, and bringing our kids back, and just really appreciate everything that you do.
more thanks from me. I don't know if I can add anything more. So much has been said already. But like Trustee Corzo said, there's so much that we've relied on our school administrators to do, both at the site and also at the district office. And I just hope that everybody knows that, everything you've done has made such a huge difference for all of our students. And thank you so much for putting our students first during this past year and a half, almost 2 years of pandemic madness. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you for everything. I can't add anything more, but this has been a crazy year and a crazy start to this current school year. But I feel like we have turned a corner, and we are, and we couldn't have done anything without all of your help. So with that, I will call in for the vote. Trustee Corzo,
Yes.
Trustee Proctor,
Yes.
Trustee Watkins,
Yes.
Trustee Warren,
Yes.
and I will vote yes as well. Thank you again for everything that you guys do. Okay, moving on to public statements. Item 5.1, public statements related to non-agenda topics. The San Mateo Foster City School Board cannot act upon any matter that has not been included and publicly posted on the agenda, except under limited circumstances as permitted by law. The board may refer matters raised in this forum to staff for investigation and or action where appropriate. Peter, would you mind opening up public comment for non-agenda items?
Absolutely. For those of you that might be attending for the first time via Zoom, if you have an item you'd like to address the board that is not on the agenda for the rest of this evening, please use the raise your hand functionality in Zoom, and I will call upon you, and you'll have 3 minutes to address the board. Okay. First, we'll have David, and then after David will be Nicole. David, go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is David Mendel, and I just had a little request for upcoming meeting. I'm the parent of a math-loving 5th grader, and I know last year at the end of the year, there was a vote to end the compacted math program, and there's supposed to be a new plan for algebra by December of this year. And we're getting to the point where parents are making decisions for next year as what's going to happen for junior high for our children. So was hopeful that possibly there would be a status update sometime soon regarding the plan for math algebra in 8th grade. Thank you very much. And thank you also to the administrators. Just like the resolution, thank you for everything. Here's a little more work for you, but excited to hear what the plan is. Thanks.
Thank you, David. Okay, next we have Nicole. After Nicole will be Teresa. Nicole? Nicole, are you there? You may need to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, Nicole. Go ahead.
I'm so sorry. My computer was acting up. I'm so sorry.
That's quite all right. Go ahead, Nicole.
Hello, Superintendent Ochoa and board. My name is Nicole Cho. I work at Audubon Elementary. I'm the transitional kindergarten teacher there, and it is my unbelievable privilege to work there. Fantastic families, fantastic kids, wonderful office staff, and great administration. Unfortunately, during the last board meeting, I feel like a bomb was dropped on our lap. Doug Garris, our principal, let us know that we would be losing our vice principal, Nelson Hunter. Nelson Hunter is such an important part of our staff. Having a VP position at a school that has had quite a few kids in the past and is now down to 560, so sorry, I misspoke. We really need someone in that VP position. Nelson Hunter is fantastic. I hope we can keep him. He is the calm in the storm when children need a guiding hand. We have lost so much at Audubon. We had 2 TOSAs last year. We had Doris, she's no longer with us. We have Rebecca, but because of staffing difficulties, she's had to step into a long-term sub position. Our wonderful Miss Maggie, who runs our EL program, has had to, again, step in and help a child who needs a one-on-one aid because we can't find one-on-one aids for our children who have it through their IEP. We don't have an RSP teacher. We've lost too much. The staff is pivoting. We are working, we're pulling together. We're wearing so many different hats. The staff at Audubon makes it look easy, but it's not. It's too much for us. So I am begging you if you could somehow find a middle ground for us. If you have to move Nelson now, we understand, we don't want him to go. But if you could somehow find a part-time position, if we could share something. We've just lost too much. We can't lose another administrator. I just feel like Audubon isn't meeting your priority list. And I really wish you would reevaluate before you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Okay, next we'll bring Teresa. Go ahead. Teresa, you may need to unmute your microphone. Teresa, are you there? Can you hear us? Okay. Well, it looks like Teresa might have some technical difficulties. We have no other hands for public comment. So Teresa, I'm sorry you're having technical difficulties, but if there is something you would like put on the record, in the past, we've had asked that you email the superintendent and that he will make sure that it gets put on the public record as part of your public comment. And apologize for the technical difficulties you might be experiencing. All right. Okay, President Chen, we have no other hands for public comment.
Great, thank you, Peter, and thank you for the public comments on non-agenda items. Before I close this item, we do have audience members in the public, and as is such, I would offer the opportunity to speak on non-agenda topics. I see you shaking heads, great, thank you very much. So we are going to move on to the next item, which is 5.2, public statements related to agenda items. Persons will be called on at the appropriate time. Before we get into our foundation committee reports, Trustee Corzo, would you mind doing the language announcement?
Bienvenidos a todos, gracias por estar aquí. Si ocupan traducción, por favor, hagan clic en su pantalla en donde ven el icono del mundo para cambiar la idioma a español, o también pueden levantar sus manos en la aplicación de Zoom. Gracias.
Great, thank you. And then for anyone interested, I also am going to announce that we do have 3 public members in the audience and 52 participants online. Okay, so item 5.3 is foundation and committee reports. Does anybody have anything they would like to report out that's happened in the last couple of weeks? No?
I went to the DLAC meeting, it was this week, and we talked about what is reclassification, the steps to reclassification for English language learners, and got a like a preview of the English language learner snapshot. And just for anybody who's curious, the next meeting, I was just trying to look at it real quick. It is on November 2nd. My update.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Any foundation or committee reports? No? Okay. Before the gala? Is there, just I'll make one announcement. It's not actually a foundation or committee report, but it is something that I think needs to be shared with the board. For those who do or don't attend the Santo County CSBA association meetings, we actually had 2 over the last one dinner and then one actual sort of executive meeting. This is the meeting where we have representatives and throughout the county from all of our school board trustees. A couple of topics that did come up was mainly there was lots of discussions about vaccines and mandates and about what everyone is doing. Obviously, everyone's seen the news with Governor Newsom making his statement, but there have been conversations about what the county is going to do, and then also plans for once the Pfizer vaccine becomes available for those ages 5 to 11, how we are going to mobilize and make sure that the vaccines are going to be readily available for all of our student population. So just want to let you know that those conversations are in the works at the county level, and we've been coordinating with other school districts and the county and the public health department to make sure that we're all on the up and prepared for when the vaccines are available. So I'll just make that announcement. Actually, that's a report out, but okay, so moving on to item 5.4. Peter, would you mind bringing in our labor representatives for their updates?
Good evening, everyone. I'll start if that's okay. Okay. I just wanted to also take a moment to thank our administrators. I'm sure it hasn't been easy with everything kind of up in the air and all of these new challenges. I just wanted to let you all know that we appreciate everything you do for us, from the COVID craziness to the HR department and their mass hiring and the insane amount of Chromebooks, bringing our school district one-to-one, making sure all the little kiddos got their meals, the new online curriculum. Pretty sure I spelled that wrong, Diego. That's probably going to make you laugh. Them managing the sites and everything in between. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And not to steal your thunder, but I kind of have to. I was informed that October 2nd was National Custodian Day. So I wanted to take a moment to thank all of our hardworking custodians, from the night custodians who come in right before everyone leaves to make everything pretty for us in the morning, to our day custodians who keep everything running. Honestly, I don't know how our school ops team leads do it. They have their regular cleaning duties, and then they randomly get the fun task of cleaning like little Johnny's puke from the courtyard or little Susie's display of her artistic ability on the bathroom walls. At my site, poor Avendra, who is amazing, by the way, also gets the fun job of dealing with all of my fabulous, crazy ideas that usually end up making him work even more. So thank you, Ravindra Singh, Daniel Monzon, Caesar Luna, who are the Bowditch custodians, and all of the other wonderful custodians in our district for everything that you do to keep our schools clean, safe, and functioning. Other than that, the testing stipend MOU was ratified during our last meeting, and we are all super excited for break next week. That's all I've got.
Good evening. I'm happy to go next. So we teachers are also incredibly excited and ready for our October break. You can kind of feel that I think everybody is ready for a nice little respite from all that we've been doing. So I do want to share before we go out to break that SMETA has given 2 classroom grants out to a couple of our educators. One who is interested in doing more flexible seating for her students, and another who wanted to update her classroom library with books that reflect the diversity in our community. And so SMETA was happy to provide those 2 grants to Mary Lina and Miss Pressy. We also want to extend a hearty thank you to all of our administrators. We know that the work we've done the last couple of years has been grueling for you, as it has been for everybody, and we really appreciate your leadership through that crazy time. And finally, I just want to thank the district and the Sanctuary Task Force for supporting our kiddos getting into outdoor ed. Abbott Middle School 6th and 7th graders were able to go last week, and they have come back just very happy little faces. We saw a lot of happiness in the kids, a little more pep in their step. They really, I think it was an amazing experience for them, and we really appreciate the support of the Ed Foundation and Sanctuary Task Force for helping our kids get there. I know the teachers who went were exhausted when they came home, but they also had a really great time. So I want to wish everybody a really happy and healthy October break, and that's all for me.
Okay, good evening, school board members, Superintendent Ochoa.
Looks
Okay. Three's a charm, sorry about that. Good evening, school board members, Superintendent Ochoa, staff and guests. My name is Lori Fukumoto, principal at North Shoreview Montessori School and representing SMEA this evening. I'd like to thank the board for recognizing school administrators. We feel very supported by all of you and we appreciate it. I would like to acknowledge the wonderful students, staff, and families at NSM. They have welcomed me to the school and I have to say it is truly a joy for me to come to work each day and I feel at home at NSM. I'm very pleased to share with you that we are on week 3 with no known positive cases of COVID, and this is really because of the vigilance of every family at North Shoreview. We are beginning to bring back some of North Shoreview's cherished traditions and offerings. Most importantly to students and staff is our Friday morning gathering. And although we are unable to meet inside the gym with parents, all classes, including the Montessori preschool housed at our site, meet on the playground each Friday to sing and play instruments, which builds our strong school community. It is a magical experience. We have a cross-country team this year of 6th through 8th grade students who just ran yesterday in a meet. And with parent volunteers, albeit limited, we have begun providing art and action to all students, and classes have once again started to grow vegetables and flowers in our garden plots. When we return from fall break in lieu of Halloween, NSM celebrates our historical timeline. So students choose a character from history, study that character, and dress up as that character. Students then line up based on what that when that character lived in time. So this will be my first experience with it, and I can't wait. Students, staff, and parents are slowly beginning to feel whole again after this pandemic. We appreciate the board and our district's leadership for providing us the opportunity to be back in person. On behalf of my school, we thank you and wish everyone a restful, enjoyable, and very safe fall break.
Thank you, guys. It's always great and wonderful to hear from you guys, and we love the stories and the individual shout outs. Fantastic. So thank you for everything that you guys are doing. All right, we are moving on to item 5.5, which is announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they would like to make?
I would like to remind everyone that the Ed Foundation's gala takes place on Friday, October 22nd, the Moonlight Masquerade. Registration opened yesterday, so if you've not yet registered, please take a moment to check your email from the foundation or from the district, or visit the foundation or district's Facebook or Instagram pages where you'll find more information about registration. If anyone listening is interested in sponsorship opportunities, you can connect with me directly and I'm happy to share more information about that. But we're looking forward to a really exciting event. We have some special guests lined up, and we'll be sharing more information about some of the exciting pre-gala engaging opportunities that will be available to you. So hope to see everyone there virtually.
Any other announcements that anyone would like to make? Let's see, none at the moment. I have, let's see, I guess this may be more of a report out, but in the past, we used to have another liaison committee called the, gosh, I forget what it's called. Anyways, yeah, so, well, so there's a home for all, just for those who are aware there or not aware there. The county is starting back up the home for all meetings. We did not actually assign anybody to this group because they were not meeting for the past year because of COVID. But when it comes time to it, we may want to actually have a discussion of who would like to attend that meeting. It is on November 4th, and so we can have the discussion at our next meeting. But that group mainly deals with affordable housing. It talks about educator housing, and it's a great group. So I just want to announce that that is back as well, and we can talk about that later. Okay, let's move on to our superintendent report. Or I'm sorry, trustee Corso, do you have something?
I was just going to add, because you brought up housing, that our county just approved a resolution in support of All Home, which is similar to Homes for All, an organization that does advocacy around housing, and they have a pledge on their website that I encourage everyone to check out. They the resolution that the county approved was in support of their regional action plan, and I was really impressed by the plan and the presentation. So if you're interested in housing, I would just encourage people to check that out.
Great, thank you for that update. Anyone else? Okay, let's move on to 5.6, Superintendent Report.
Thank you, President Chen. I'll keep my remarks brief tonight. I want to recognize and thank the parents in the community who have helped us as a district achieve something that we're very proud of, and that is 4 consecutive weeks running of reduced COVID cases amongst students and staff in the San Mateo Foster City School District. It's a testament to everybody's collective commitment to sending healthy children to school and sending children to school wearing their masks and communicating the importance of the protocols that we've put in place for the year. Our children at our schools are amazing little human beings, and they inspire all of us. They show us how important it is that they have this avenue to be with their friends and to learn from their teachers, and it's a real joy to see them in their classrooms. A huge thank you to all of our SMETA members who have done so much at the beginning of this year to make this school year feel as welcoming and as normal as possible, and we couldn't do it without them. A huge thank you to all of our CSEA employees who are the heartbeat of the district and keep the place running, keep the lights on, and keep our children fed and taken care of, and we're just extremely grateful to them. To the administrators, we're in this together. We're doing this work every single day. I see you out there. We don't always get the opportunity to thank you, but you are an indispensable part of the district's program and plan. And then I really want to give a message to families out there during the break. Make smart choices, wear those masks, check your symptoms. When we come back on the 18th, if your child isn't feeling well, get them tested, keep them home until we find out those results, so that when we return from our October break, which we all very much deserve and are very much looking forward to, we come back to continued low numbers of COVID so we can keep our educational programs running. And that is my report for tonight.
Well said, Superintendent Ochoa. Thank you very much for that update. Moving on to our consent agenda, proposed consent agenda. All items on the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion on these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion, unless members of the board, staff, or public request specific items be removed and discussed from the consent agenda. The superintendent and staff recommend approval of all consent items. Movement of any recommended consent item is appropriate. Does any member of the board want to pull an item? I see no shaking. Okay. Oh,
I don't want to pull it, but again, as I usually do, I just want to highlight the fact that we are spending $52,975 on a special education non-public agency contract. An ERMS, which is educational related mental health services contract for $209,600. And there's also a special ed settlement for $55,000. So just to highlight what we're spending in special ed.
thank you, Trustee Warren. Reaching out to the members in the public in the audience first. Does anyone want to pull an item? No? See shaking heads. Thank you. Peter, would you mind opening it up to the public online?
Yes, if there's any members of the public that would like to make public comment on one of the proposed consent agenda items, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom. And then I'll ask you specifically which agenda item you would like to make comment on. Okay. Randy? Randy, which agenda item would you like to make public comment on?
On 6.1.3. Thank you.
6.1.3. Thank you, Randy. President Chen, we have no other hands.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to pull item 6.1.3 so we can hear a comment from the public. Does anyone want to make a motion on the rest of the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the removal of 6.1.3.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion. Trustee Proctor for the second. Roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So the consent items agenda has been approved except for item 6.13. We will hear that now. Superintendent Ochoa, did you have anything you want to say about 6.1.3 before we call public comment?
So item 6.1.3 is the recommendation for approval of a special education settlement agreement. In this case, the student is a 7th grade student residing within the district and attending a private school for students with special needs. The parents allege that the district's program offer denied the student a free and appropriate public education, or a FAPE, and this agreement constitutes a full and final resolution of all claims and issues arising from or related to the educational program through the end of the 21-22 school year in an amount not to exceed $55,000.
Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa. Does anybody have any clarifying questions before we call public comment? No? Okay. Peter, if you wouldn't mind, I would like to open public comment on item 6.1.3.
Awesome. Okay, Randy, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead, Randy.
Okay, sorry, the normal unmute thing didn't come up. So yeah, so I'm coming to you again to bring up the issue of students with disabilities and settlements for them. I've brought these up from the, to bring these up, pull these up from the consent agenda for the past several meetings because I'm concerned about these and I think that you should be as well. The last meeting when I brought this up, one of the trustees countered that, well, these things shouldn't be elevated because that was in the past and these are being worked on now, and that there is a there's going to be an update on special ed, you know, in the next meeting or two. And, you know, I look on the proposed governance calendar, which is another agenda item for tonight, and I see that the special ed update isn't even now calendared until next year, until January. I thought that that was supposed to be before the end of this calendar year. So once again, I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to use the word equity because I believe that if you were to report on the race and SES of those students who are getting these settlements, you would see that that does not match the distribution of the race and SES of all of the students with disabilities. The same set of students that have access to the settlements is not representative of the set of students that have disabilities. This is an equity issue, and this should be concerning. Are some students getting more access than others? Is it because they have more money? Is it because they have access to language? Is it because they can pay a lawyer to get them these settlements, to find those loopholes? Does that get them access to education that other families and kids in our district don't have? Why aren't these bells going off for you? Now, when you say that these other issues were older, there's no one on this. I mean, there's only, you know, 3 of you have been on this board since the beginning of 2018, and a couple of you since the end of 2017. all of those issues that were brought up last week, the last meeting dated back to the 2018-2019 school year. That's disingenuous. You are on the hook for all of that time. Please stand up for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, we have another hand. Joe, go ahead, Joe.
Is this on, are we speaking on item 8.1 right now?
I'm sorry, Joe. No, we are speaking currently on consent item 613. Item 8 is a little bit later on our agenda.
My apologies.
Okay, Joe, thank you. All right, President Chin, we have no other hands for comment on this item.
Great, thank you. Before I close public comment on this item, just going to offer to the audience and the members here if they need to provide comment or would like to provide comment on this item. No, thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to close public comment on item 6.1.3, bring it back to the board. Superintendent Choa, I'll just ask you that one question. I did see that on the agenda builder. We are still on schedule to actually have a special ed update on it in October. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other board comments?
Yes.
Sure, go for it.
So I think one thing that needs to be remembered is when we talk about special education, free and appropriate public education is very much the center of the law. One of the things that as a district, IDEA or Individuals with Disabilities Education Act and directs us to do is to provide educational plans, IEPs, that help the children access their education in a way that is meaningful and appropriate. Not everybody can function in a classroom without support, and that support is needed. What seems to have come about in the past is that not every student, I think, has had a chance to get the services in a meaningful way. I am excited to see that tide changing. I'm excited for the update that's coming at our next meeting so that we can see, okay, so stepping back, when we talk about IEPs, we talk about present levels. We talk about where are we at now so that we can see how our interventions are actually working. I'm excited to be able to see what our present levels are for our special education services in our special education department so that we can see where the direction is going to be headed. And hopefully we won't be having to see so many settlements and placements outside of our district, and that we will be able to educate all of our students, or as most of our students as appropriate, within our district, and that we can have the inclusion where everybody can learn from all neurodiverse, neurotypical, all sorts of levels, all of that. So I'm excited to see and hear going forward where we're at. And I look forward to that report.
Great, thank you for that comment. Anyone else would like to make a comment, or I'll entertain a motion on this item? Anyone?
I'll make a motion to approve 6.1.3.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor, for the motion. Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So item 6.13 has been approved, and that completes the consent agenda. I do know that in the past we normally paused here because there were some HR changes, and I know it's not listed here, but we do have some audience members here. Do we want to pause for a second?
Good evening, board members. There have been some staffing changes, and we're pleased to announce a couple of them this evening. First of all, I'm pleased to announce that John Cosmos, who is the principal of Bayside Academy, will be the new Director of Human Resources. John's been in the district for many, many years and has been an excellent leader, and we're very pleased to have him join us at the district office. Secondly, Maria DiMattei, who has been the assistant principal at Bayside, will now become the new principal of Bayside Academy. Maria has been working with elementary school students, is very familiar with the school, highly regarded, and so we're very excited to have her become the new principal.
Thank you for that update. Congratulations to the both of you guys. It's great to actually see you guys here and for us to talk to you and congratulate you in person. So congratulations again. We really are very glad that you're still with us in some ways, but moving on into different positions. And we're very thankful for all your hard work that you guys have done. So thank you. All right, we are moving on to item 7.1. Do we have a report for item 7.1 or it's just?
We have our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Chambliss. Take it away.
All right, good evening. Each time this time of year, we come to the board with information about the status of our instructional materials, and also to report on the status of our facilities. And we are coming to you this evening with a report that, after the review by the San Mateo County Office of Education at 5 of our sites, that all 5 sites passed with flying colors, full sufficiency of instructional materials and status of facilities. In addition, we reach out to all of our other schools that are not actually visited by the county and have them also do an inventory of their instructional materials, and they all are confirming that they have the materials needed to provide core instruction to all of our students. And so we're here to report that to you, and I'm available for any further questions.
So at this time, President Chin, what you would do is gavel in the public hearing, notice the time, and then Peter would open up for any public comment specifically related to this public hearing.
Great, thank you for that presentation, and thank you for that comment, Superintendent Ochoa. I don't think we have used the gavel in maybe 3 years, and I actually don't see it here. So yeah, I'm gonna open up public comment on the sufficiency of instructional materials. Peter, I'm assuming from the public audience that there's no comments on the public hearing. No, so Peter, would you mind opening up public hearing for public comments, please?
Yes, anybody who would like to make comment on the sufficiency of instructional materials, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay. President Chin, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, thank you. I'm going to officially close the public hearing and public comment period for item 7.1. This is up for a vote. Does anyone want to start with any comments or would like to make a motion on this item?
Can I just ask a question?
Yep.
And this is just because I'm unfamiliar with the process. You mentioned, Mr. Chambliss, that 5 schools were inspected by the county. Is that a random 5 schools out of our 21, or are there a specific schools that the county has to check in on?
It is the latter. There are schools that were identified actually almost a couple of decades ago based on student performance as schools that needed to regularly have their instructional materials checked. This is part of the Williams settlement process. And so year in, year out, their gift is to continue to engage with the county and host them for this instructional material sufficiency process. So it is a set that happens each year.
So is there, I mean, these for indefinite period of time now? Is that the way the settlement works? Or
yeah, and
like, does it have it so that like schools can come in and off that list? Or, I mean, like I said, I'm just ignorant to the process.
Sure. No, the state has not revisited, although it is actually right now, it has not revisited this legislation that resulted from the Williams settlement for many, many years. So it has established that process and that way of identifying consistently year after year those schools. We're looking forward to the opportunity with new legislation to have a reset on this process. I mean, it's an incredibly valuable process in terms of establishing an equity bar that we have to make sure that students from all backgrounds that go to all sorts of different schools all have the same access to core materials, which importantly that they can bring home and use at home. So it's been an incredibly important process. I think by now, certainly in our district, we've established the routines to guarantee that. So we're looking forward to the opportunity to reset the process from the state.
That sounds great. And I'm glad that we extend it as a district, we extend it past and beyond just the 5 schools that the county comes in and looks at, that we do look at it for all of our schools. Because if your site isn't functional or has issues, it makes it more difficult to learn and more difficult to work in that environment. So I'm glad that we take that opportunity to look at all 21 schools.
Sure.
Thank you.
I guess I would add that, and this has been a particularly important year after 16 months of the pandemic, where the emphasis was get instructional materials home to students. We wanted to make sure that those materials came back, and where they didn't, that we properly replace those materials. So it is a valuable process for us in that respect.
Great. Anyone else with any other comments, or would anyone like to make a motion on this?
Motion to approve 7.1, resolution number 9/21/22, public sufficiency of instructional materials.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion, Trustee Corzo for the second. Roll call vote, Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will vote yes as well. So 7.1 has passed. Thank you for that report and that update. Moving on to 8.1.
Yes, good evening, everyone. We have in front of you tonight a draft of a project labor agreement, and we want to thank the San Mateo County Central Labor Council for forwarding on this document to us for our review. We have had the opportunity to discuss it with staff briefly. We've had the opportunity to forward this to our council as well for their review. We've had the opportunity to speak with some other districts who have these agreements in place. And the council has generously offered to meet with us to discuss the components of the agreement, so we develop a common appreciation and understanding of how they function. So we're looking forward to that discussion. We anticipate it'll be the week after we come back from break. So we're trying to schedule that meeting. And we've had discussions with our council as well about some of the technicalities and formalities associated with when this type of document if it were to be in place, what components of our front end documents, our contracts would need to be modified. So we've already begun that conversation with our council to assist us with that. So we'll look forward to the conversation. Again, this is just in the first draft format for you to become accustomed with some of the details. There's more conversations we'll have with the teams, and we'll be able to bring back to you, we anticipate you'll be able to bring back to you an actual agreement at some point in time in the future for your consideration and potential adoption. So I want to give you some time frame as well too in terms of when we anticipate these discussions to occur. And we'll keep you posted as we move forward. So happy to answer any questions you might have at this point.
Great, thank you, Patrick. I have questions, but I mean, I have comments, but I'll wait for the comments. Does anybody have any clarifying questions?
I had a question. This agreement that you're going to eventually bring back, is this something that's by project, or it covers everything, or how will it work?
So districts manage this in different ways, Allison. Some districts have it cover all projects. Some districts have it cover select projects. And there's variations of that and contributing factors to that. So that'll be part of our conversation too, and some of what we will contemplate as we move forward. We don't have a, so again, that's just some raw data for you. That what I'm aware of is that districts manage this in different ways.
And just a follow-up. So when will we discuss that, which direction we're going, and when will we get the information as to like fiscal impacts or any of that kind of stuff?
So, you know, in terms of the fiscal impacts, so timeframe wise, I anticipate that we'll have these conversations in October, and we'll get more information from the teams, from council. Their council is going to meet with us and our council too. Will help us with this, so I can bring back more information to you about it. Frankly, the information that there's discussion around and different opinions around fiscal impacts of these agreements being in place, and I've read different viewpoints on that, and so you know, I think one way to look at it, I mean, if you were to bid a job and said if it was with an agreement in place and without an agreement in place, what might the cost difference be? So I think that there's a lot of information out there that speculate about what the cost might be. So unless I went to that level of detail, Allison, I can give you kind of a broad perspective of it. I think there's other more global issues we're trying to address, and frankly, some of you and your colleagues spoke to those very articulately last time. And so again, if we go project by project, that's really the only way technically we really know what the cost delta will be at a project level. So, do you want to say something?
And Trustee Proctor, if I can chime in here. At the commencement of this process, which started a few meetings back with President Chin asking for us to agendize project labor agreements and construction procedures, staff, meaning Patrick and his team and myself, we didn't really have a real strong understanding of what the interest of the board might be in entering into a potential project labor agreement. So we felt like at our last meeting, it was an opportunity to allow the public to hear about project labor agreements, allow the board to, you know, publicly get the first opportunity to voice your individual points of view on project labor agreements. I think both Patrick and I came away from our last meeting saying there's some interest among all 5 board members, but until you agendize it and you hold the meeting, you just don't really know for sure how strong that interest is. Based on the responses we got from the board at our last meeting, we decided let's reach out to our labor partners and let's ask if they have some contract language that we can bring to the board, because by agendizing it in this way, we're basically publicly giving everyone an opportunity to really dig into it and ask those questions and think through it. And then we give the public an opportunity, after I'm done pontificating here for the next couple of minutes, an opportunity to be heard and give us their opinions, and then the board an opportunity to ask follow-up questions. And then for the October 23rd meeting, with the board's direction, we'll be ready to bring back some potential next steps of how to implement a potential project labor agreement, assuming that the board continues to give favorable feedback and provide us direction at the end of this agenda item.
Great. Any other clarifying questions before we open it to the public? No, no, no. Okay. I'm going to open up public comment on item 8.1. I'm going to look to the members of the audience first to see if they have any public comment. So, no, I don't think so. So, okay. Peter, if you wouldn't mind opening up public comment for those who are online, please.
Yes, any member of the public who would like to make comment on agenda item 8.1, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, first we will have Joe. After Joe will be Nicole. Joe, go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Joe Alubis. I am just joining today because I want to speak in opposition to project labor agreements, and I have a few PLA failures that I wish to share with you. On August the 10th, the San Francisco Unified School District, they had their modernization of George Washington High School. It was originally contracted for $34.4 million. It's had its few change orders that increased it to 37 million. At the Fremont, actually at the East Side Union High School District, the DW Sites Improvement Project MP Fixing, it was estimated at $1 million. They only had one bid at $1.4 million. It was rejected due to being overestimate. So in short, just want to say that PLAs, result in delays, results in overcosts, and they need to be avoided.
Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, next we have Nicole. Nicole, go ahead.
Good evening, President Chin and members of the school board. Nicole Gehring with Associated Builders and Contractors. We run a state federally approved apprenticeship program with 5 trades. We also run the Fire Sprinkler Association. We train 800 apprentices across the state that do public works. Our members build schools. They've been building quality schools in your district for over 2 decades, probably 3 decades. And our members are not in favor of project labor agreements. We believe that they impact the members of the community. The community is not able to build. We have pre-apprenticeship programs, people like Phil who found themselves down in the dumps with abuse, substance abuse, were not able to get their lives going until they entered into our program. Project labor agreements are not inclusive. I'm sorry, they do not provide equity. They are not inclusive. They only support a certain segment of the construction industry, which is needed, but you're going to restrict other pipelines, and we're trying to bring people in as well. We know that out of 5, every construction individual is retiring. There's only 1 entering into the workforce. And if you are going to put an agreement together with only a certain segment of the industry, you're going to hurt opportunities and deny people of earning prevailing wage opportunities in your community if they are not being able to enter into working with your district as well. These are people with qualified skills in the trades. The proposed draft that came before you, Article 8.1, says you have to refer all of the workers from the union hiring halls. What about all of your contractors who are not affiliated with hiring halls, who employ people in your community? How are they going to be able to comply with this agreement? Also, Article 9, wages and benefits for the workers. If they aren't disabled to dispatch, they all have to, the workers would have to forfeit their pension plans. For an electrician, this is $19 an hour into the union trust funds. So a non-union electrical worker would lose on a 500-hour job, $9,000 on his job. That is what we would call wage theft. Also, our apprenticeship programs and all project labor agreements that we've seen, they have all been excluded from being able to work. We're just trying to build a pipeline and bring people into the community and bring people into the trades. It's much needed. There's one survey out there that says 67% of the construction firms surveyed in California had hourly craft positions. Please reconsider this and look at all aspects of this. And maybe you want to look at a workforce development plan in lieu that will include all workers and apprentices living in San Mateo so that all of them can work on your projects. Project labor agreements are predominantly exclusionary to only a certain segment, and we want to be equitable for the entire diverse economy of your city. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul. Okay, next we'll have James. James, go ahead.
Good evening, Chairman Chin, Honorable Board of Trustees, hardworking school board staff, and members of the public. My name's James Regomez. I reside at 1861 Donner Avenue here in San Bruno in San Mateo County. I didn't realize we'd have people calling in from out of state talking about policy here in our state. First, I would like to say after the last meeting, I want to thank the Board of Trustees and the staff for supporting labor and supporting the project labor agreement. I sent you guys a number of studies that showed that project labor agreements do not escalate the costs of PLAs. And you'll notice in these studies that the studies that are pro PLA, if you will, are from highly accredited colleges and schools. And the ones that the associated builders and contractors put out are from these colleges that aren't highly accredited and that not too many people have heard of. Project labor agreement are a way to mitigate wage theft by ensuring that a worker is going to receive an hourly rate, healthcare for them and their family, something to retire on. And in the IBW's case, they have a annuity form retirement. So once those workers that Nicole was speaking about put their money into that annuity after a certain timeline, they do get to pull that money out of the retirement. And so that is a false statement. I would also like to point out of two projects that were done in our own town. Project labor agreements ensures that you have a skilled and trained workforce. Our apprenticeship program graduates over 50 to 70% of our individuals, while the associated builders contractors graduate less than 5%. So they do not have a pathway. However, two projects that were done in our area, one of them was the Palo Alto Library. It was done by an open shop. And the other one was the Gilroy Library under a PLA. The Gilroy Library was finished on time and on budget. The Palo Alto Library was millions of dollars in overrun in a year and a half delayed. So there is a hidden cost with shoddy workmanship and having to go back and do work. That is why we have in the apprenticeship programs that we offer is our apprenticeship program is one of the highest, the largest privately funded education systems in these United States, spending $1 billion between the trades and the firefighters. So that's why we create these policies with other school districts, because they understand the benefit of a skilled and trained workforce. Again, I'd like to thank you for considering this and thank you for allowing me the time to speak. When people ask me what unions are, I say the working families standing together. We'd like to thank you for standing with our working families.
Thank you, James. Okay, President Chin, we have no other hands for public comment.
Great. Thank you for everyone for providing your public comments. I'm going to officially close the public comment on item 8.1, opening up for board discussion or comments. This is not up for a vote. It is informational. So we can provide any further direction to staff if needed. Does anybody want to go ahead and have comments? Me? Okay, fine. All right, I'll go first. Thank you for bringing this forward to us. I think it's a good ongoing conversation. It's not something that we should just do overnight. It does have major impacts to our facilities and our overall budgets when we go through it and how we actually bring sort of our new modern facilities that are called out in Measure T to real life for our students. What I'm looking for, honestly, is is I'm grateful for the trades for bringing forward this sample template. I think going through the actual template, one thing that we learned from our last presentation, and one thing that really calls out to me is in the template, it's item 1.9, which again is basically the financial threshold or the project cost threshold of when a PLA would be required. I think that this is the real issue. I mean, for small projects that are, less than $1,000, I don't know if it makes sense, right? But on large projects that are $50 million, maybe it does make sense, right? Drawing this line and where this line is I'm really looking for guidance from the district staff. What I would hope is that you guys, which you've already said, you've taken this and you've gone back to your attorneys, you're looking over all of our budgets and all of our projects. I would love for you guys to meet with the trades and figure out where this line is, what makes sense for both us and for them, so that there is some wiggle room there for us to get projects done in a fast timeline, but also making sure that we have the threshold there so that where the PLA really is needed, we have it. And so to me, that item, I mean, it's not item, it's section 1.9 is probably the most impactful one. I mean, there's a whole bunch of other things in here that are called out, which I think they're somewhat nuanced. But I'd look for guidance from the district staff in terms of how we move forward. But I would love for it to be sort of a collaborative effort between the trades and us, and to really come forward with an agreement and an understanding, a collaborative understanding of where we want to draw this line. Because I think from our last meeting, I think all of us did support the possible adoption of a PLA, but it's really just the finer details. It's the devil in the details. Where do we draw this line? And I think this is where I would look to district staff and for your guidance and your direction. So those are my comments. I don't know if anybody else has any other comments that they want to add.
I would just add that I'm still in support of continuing to explore our options with PLAs. I do like the idea of like projects under a certain amount, projects over a certain amount. Definitely want to see more numbers, and I actually am interested to learn a little bit more about how we make sure that the PLA maybe like prioritizes local workers in our county and our community. I think that's smart for a lot of different reasons. Yeah, my experience with unions is that sometimes they do have members that live in other areas, but maybe are part of like the local unions here. Yeah, I think it, part of the, I think it's a real concern that let me take a step back. I think like a larger issue that was mentioned in one of the public comments is that we have a community that definitely supports unions, but there is a need for younger folks to be going into trades, and I think that's something that needs to happen more. And I think actually being part of supporting PLAs helps push that forward. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any comments. I definitely want to continue with this though.
Any other comments? Okay. Patrick, do you have what you need for?
Good, yeah. Thanks so much for your comments. Appreciate it.
Okay, fantastic. So to be continued. All right, we're moving on to item 9.1, grand jury report.
Presented to the board this evening is the district's response to the civil grand jury report. The civil grand jury is a judicial body of 19 citizens, and they investigate a wide range of problems and propose solutions. In its most recent 2021 report, They address the importance of a racially and ethnically diverse teaching force, as they found in San Mateo County that the ethnic diversity of teachers does not closely mirror that of our students and families. This is a problem that the district was already starting to tackle. Our equity task force had a subcommittee on staffing where we were already beginning to address this issue. The district agrees and accepts the findings in the grand jury report, and the grand jury recommends that each school district commit to teacher diversity in its strategic plan and publicly display it on their websites. As you are aware, the district is currently in the middle of its strategic planning process. However, we are committed to implementing the recommendations from the grand jury by June 30th, 2022, when the strategic plan is completed. So this evening, we respectfully request that the board approve the response to the grand jury's findings and recommendations as presented.
Thank you, Sue, for that presentation. Does anybody have any clarifying questions? No? Okay, I'm going to open up to the pub. Oh,
Just one quick question is, I know that one of the priority areas for the equity task force was around this piece. And so I'm just curious how that work overlaps with like, you know, the recommendations or how the team is looking at that potential overlap.
I think what we're hoping is that, you know, we'll be able to continue to work in the district and around increasing workforce diversity, and that perhaps it will be incorporated into the strategic plan. So I don't know if I'm understanding your question correctly, and I apologize.
Yeah, maybe I'm not understanding what question I'm asking. I can't hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just kind of, I maybe just like kind of pondering out loud about just the fact that I know that we've already, maybe it's more of a comment. So maybe I'll.
any other clarifying questions? No? Okay, we're going to go to public comment, opening up to the members and the public in the audience live first. No? Shaking heads. No, thank you. Okay, Peter, if you wouldn't mind opening up public comment for those members who are attending online, please.
Absolutely. Any members of the public joining us through Zoom and would like to make comment on item 9.1, the grand jury report, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, President Chin, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, I'm going to officially close public comment on item 9.1 and opening up for board discussion. Comments? This is an informational item. Anything?
Yeah, I think maybe what I was kind of trying to articulate is just the fact that I know that our team has been working on this, and I know that it was a priority for the district staff, and then it was a priority for the equity task force, something that district staff and the task force have been working on for a couple of years already. And so I think logical sort of, you know, progression in terms of thinking about the inclusion in our strategic plan and continuing the work, because even though work has happened and partnerships have been developed to kind of work on these pieces, you know, it's still something that needs to be prioritized and is really important. So less of a question, more of a comment. So thanks for the work already and looking forward to seeing it continue.
Any other comments, questions? I'll make one comment on item 9, which is about the Santo County School Boards Association Equity Network. I know Trustee Corzo and I and our previous superintendent, Dr. Roses, did attend many meetings. In fact, I think it was like 3, 4, 5 meetings. It seemed like we were meeting every month. I found that actually to be quite helpful and quite useful. I understand that, you know, the statement here is made that maybe because it moved online, it wasn't necessarily impactful for us. But as a district, in comparison to other districts in Santo County, we had already adopted an equity resolution, had an equity task force. And I believe, I mean, I got a lot out of the actual equity network when we actually met in person. And so I take a little bit of, it's a little lacking in some ways. I think that because I think there was stuff that that at least I took back and brought forward here on the board and in my comments and in comments, not public comments, have used. And so I just want to make that one statement because I do believe that just because it moved online, that I sort of disagree that there was an impact there. So, okay. Any other comments before we move on? No. Okay. Are you about to?
Yeah.
Yeah, you could tell. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of like take a step back. So just to, I mean, I think this was already stated, but just to kind of reiterate, the grand jury report, I think like this is a really good topic for them to dig into. It's a really good, you know, it's a really important issue in our county and in our community, and really like digs into, you know, what that looks like here specifically. You know, I think it's a good kind of framework for us to dig into further as a district. Yeah, there's a lot here. There's a lot here, but I also think that, you know, our district has been making moves on a lot of these issues internally already. And so while, you know, this is, you know, we have to respond legally to this grand jury finding, and you know, we have. I hope that, you know, we continue to dig into these issues, and I look forward to seeing how we do so. But I do feel like, you know, we have made progress on these things, and we have started many conversations that are really important to making progress on the goal of having, you know, more diversity and more teachers and staff that reflect our students.
Great. Okay. Thank you. Unless there's any other comments, we move on. All right. Let's move on to item 10.1, the agenda builder. Superintendent Ochoa, are you starting this one? Thank you.
Thank you, President Chin. Item 10.1, approval of proposed San Mateo Foster City agenda builder, is an item that refers to a public announcement, a public conversation about the types of accountability presentations that the board receives as part of a permanent schedule not requested on behalf of individual board members. And the idea and the intent behind establishing a proposed governance calendar for the district is that it would create a high level of public awareness and a predictability regarding the times of year that the school board, and by extension, the entire community, would receive presentations that address the substantial areas of concern related to each of the types of presentations that are made. I'll focus on the student achievement related presentations in my remarks tonight, those being a presentation for student achievement regarding the California assessment of academic achievement for students. And the reason to administer and provide that presentation in July is that those exams are typically open during a window that begins in late March and ends in the middle of May. With the new system of assessment in the state of California, we actually get data back much sooner than we had in prior years. And so it would be a perfect time for us to report completion data, as well as in a best case scenario, actual achievement results in that July timeframe. It's also a great time to report to the board on credits earned by students, grades earned by students, particularly in our middle schools. And it's an opportunity to present to the board end of year completion reports for students with their reading levels at the elementary grades and their math completion in the elementary grades as well. kicking forward to October. The reason to make the presentation in the month of October is that there's a process annually where the state provides a California dashboard update, which takes place in October. And the finalized, reviewed, and certified test score data from the prior May administration is also available at that time of year. It also lines up to the expected time for the district to be able to report to the board an update on formative assessments. Now, in that one section, I've put in parentheses a 10/21, meaning October 21 presentation to the board, which would come to your next meeting. At that meeting, the board will be presented with data regarding the student reading results on an assessment we administered, referred to as F&P or Fountas and Pinnell, as well as the district's first administration of the Zern math and illustrative math formative assessments that were given at the end of September. So these are very immediate and real-time reports that the board and the community can review that are different than the not timely or end of year type of presentations that have historically resulted in a real lag between when assessments are given and when achievement results are shared with the board and with the community. What you can see in February is we kick forward an additional student formative assessment presentation. The reason to do that is our design will implement in the future a September as well as January administration of assessments that are district-wide and monitored. That gives us a second opportunity during the school year to track progress for students. In March, what you'll see there is a proposal to initiate curriculum purchases in March of every school year. We did start this school year lacking physical curriculum materials for multiple grade levels and multiple curriculum subject areas, and we need to discontinue that practice. And the way to do it is to agendize curriculum purchases in March so that all the materials can be received by the end of June and then administered to all the schools for the start of the school year. And as many teachers will tell you, nothing will make them happier than to leave the school year with their materials in hand, because they don't, in fact, spend 72 days on the beach. Many of them like to look at their curriculum for the upcoming year. So it's a real benefit to teachers and by extension to kids when we can give them their materials a little bit early. In April, we would present to the board on summer school plans. And the reason to do that is it does take a couple of months to get those plans organized and finalized and implemented. So we want to make sure that we're early in that process to the board to get approval for summer school, hire the staff, choose the curriculum, identify the kids, and get everything in motion by June. As well as a recommendation for an LCAP board study session. April is a great time during the school year to have those 2 assessment results, the fall and the spring, to have the educational materials considered, to have the whole public process for the LCAP, which, as the board is aware, involves stakeholder meetings, online forums, coffee with the superintendent events, surveys. And April's a great time for the board to sort of take a good 3 to 4 hours to soak it all in. Think about it, because by May and June, I'll be presenting to the board on LCAP initial review and then adoption by June. So it does give the board that voice and that opportunity to really dig into the details of the LCAP. By May, as you can see, we have LCAP final draft presented to the board and LPAC results. This is a particularly important area. This is a time of year where we are evaluating the completion of our English learner students with their assessments, the growth that we've been tracking throughout the year, and fingers crossed, high levels of reclassification for those students that do exceed those standards and meet the criteria for reclassification. And then with June, pushing forward the LCAP adoption. And I should have spelled this out, so I apologize for this, but the adoption of what's called the consolidated application. It's an abbreviation in education terms. We just refer to it as the CONAP, but it's where we house all of our additional funding, additional approvals for different title resources and external funding factors that we put into our budget. And so what the board is looking at is a proposal that I'm making. I do want to give members of the public an opportunity to ask questions, as well as for the board to review this tonight and suggest maybe adding one or adding two here, maybe moving one from 1 month to the other. At the board's request, I could go through every single item, but I'll leave that up to the board and we can talk through that. And with that, I will turn it over to the board and to the public for questions and comments.
Thank you, Superintendent Ochoa. And just one quick clarifying question. Again, we are, it is not listed, but you mentioned this earlier. We are having a special education update in October, which is basically 2 weeks, right? So it's not.
Yes, and I want to address why it's not listed. The reason is that the presentation in October came at the request of a school board member. So it's sort of the explanation for why it's necessary to have this, so that the board doesn't ask for those presentations. They know those presentations are coming up. Now, what's at issue tonight is for the board to be heard and say, Diego, 2 presentations on one topic is not enough. We need a third. And then at that point in time, finding that additional space for it, which we can do tonight in this meeting.
Great, thank you. That's a good comment. Any other clarifying questions from the board? I guess last question, just this is going to be public. Is it going to be listed online for the public to see so that they can also see what's going to be coming as well? Great, fantastic. No comments? Okay, I'm going to open up to the members of the public in the audience. No, thank you, shaking your heads. Peter, if you wouldn't mind opening up public comment for those who are online, please.
Absolutely. Any member of the public that would like to make a comment on the agenda item 10.1, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. Okay, Randy, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. So one question that I had when I took a look at this governance calendar is, so for everything prior to October, is this a reflection of what has actually been presented in each of these months? Have these things actually been presented? Number one. Number two, so with the school construction updates, those, at least as of last year, those are supposed to have been done quarterly. And on here I see three updates across the year. And I think that there's one missing. And I think probably the most important one is missing, which would be the one at the beginning of summer, because that's the one that, you know, would detail out the plans for the summer construction that would be going on. Otherwise, the most recent one would be in March, and then you have a 6-month gap. And if there's changes that are being made, you know, which is what happened last year, there was a big dip that, you know, who knows what was going on. And apparently there was a lot of changes. And yeah, so those were the comments that I have. And if there are changes to this calendar, will that calendar be updated for transparency to the public? Thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, President Chen, we have no other hands for public comment.
Great, thank you for the public comments. I'm officially closing public comment on item 10.1, opening it back up for discussion and direction from the board.
I had a couple of things, and just to really quickly, just kind of, I guess, the logistics about this. So my understanding of this is that this isn't a working document of what we have covered or will be covering as it kind of relates to things that just come up. This is just essentially like a scope and sequence of what we plan to do for the things that we know we're going to cover. there will still be other items on the agenda, and this isn't reflective of what has happened. It's a proposal for how we will do meetings moving forward, correct?
That's
I
correct.
just wanted to clarify that. I had a couple of, so I would love to see an additional presentation at the end of the year on student achievement. So because, correct me if I'm wrong, but we would have end of year assessments that we would be able to report on. Is the thinking that we wouldn't have enough time to get that data to us in June because those assessments are happening in June?
That's the concern, Trustee Watkins. The other concern is that's the time of year when we're actually working towards LCAP adoption. And I think David might need an extra set of hands, or maybe 3 or 4 extra sets of hands, only because it's really intense time for ed services because they're so wrapped up in the LCAP. And for me, it's a matter of really wanting to have a comprehensive and to do it justice, basically. It would be, in my opinion, really difficult to pull that off in June, especially because we do actually go into that second week in June in terms of the assessments, and we wouldn't have those entered into the system until the end of the second week in June, which would give us about 5 to 6 work days to turn it around to have a completed report to the board.
Would it be possible then to add the formative assessments in July? If we're looking at, I think it would just be helpful to have end of year consistency, right? So we're looking at CASP, but there should be some alignment with other assessments that kids have been given, but not necessarily. So if we're able to see the through line through all of the quarters that we're giving assessments.
So if we have a formative in September, a formative in December, a formative in March, or, you know, I'm just putting months out there, but what you're saying is there a way to add an additional presentation that reflects the last formative? Because for many subjects, especially the ones where kids are taking CASP, the CASP will substitute for that last assessment. But for grades where that isn't the case, like kinder, first, second, and TK, that would, yeah, so I see what you're saying.
So basically, anytime there's an assessment that's given kind of district-wide or grade band-wide, if we could have grade band-wide, so whenever that happens, and if CASP takes the place of it, I'm not asking for us to give assessments that we wouldn't already give, just for us to have that information.
Yeah. I think the alignment for that, Trustee Watkins, is July, because that's the time period where those, and David, you can chime in here as well, that would be the time where the TK kinder first and second grade teachers would be giving those math and ELA last formative, or they might even be summative, but you could think of them as that third or fourth formative assessment. And David, I'll let you chime in here.
Yeah, that's correct. And I think we're also talking about some adjustments in the upper grade to align with the CASP assessment that's going on. But yes, in that period for those grades that we don't do the CASP assessments for, also we could also include in July some LPAC reporting as well.
Great, that would be wonderful. A couple other things. I would love to see 3 special education updates during the year versus 2. I see others shaking hands, so I think it looks like there's alignment there. The other thing I thought about that I'm not seeing woven throughout is kind of instructional, professional learning sort of updates. So just what's happening in terms of focus for instruction, what's happening in terms of professional learning. I would love to see that woven in. The other thing I know that we've had hit or miss in terms of consistency in the past that at least I think is really helpful is to have presentations from some of our committees. So having Equity Task Force, DLAC, Sanctuary Task Force, CDAC. So I think right now those are coming up at the request of the board, but I would love to see those systemic, like whether it's a beginning of year, end of year, mid-year, end of year, something like that. Those groups directly are working on addressing some of the needs of our most, impacted, vulnerable kids. And so I think that would be really helpful to have that built in. And the other thing I'll just say in general, when we look at this, I know one of the reasons why we started having a conversation about having one of these kind of calendars or years ago, is just thinking about how much time we're spending talking about student outcomes, student achievement, and how much time we're spending in other places. And many, many moons ago, I think CSB, I forget what the exact stat is, but it's like 80% of your time should be spent on student outcomes. And so if we look at this and kind of take an analysis of like the things that we have planned is about 80% of that on student outcomes and student achievement. I haven't done that math. It looks like maybe it might be, particularly if we add some of these other things in. So I think that this is a good way to hold us accountable to that.
I had a brief comment on the calendar. I'm wondering if we maybe
for example, someone brought up
that haven't
I'm sorry, Trustee Proctor, I apologize to interrupt, but I just wanted to let you know, it seems like either your microphone might be muffled or potentially it could be an issue with your microphone. We did not catch your comments prior.
I'm having all sorts of issues today. Can you hear me now?
You can.
Yeah. Okay.
Coming loud and clear now. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry. So my question was if we can add things to the calendar, like in a different color or a different font as they come up. For example, someone in public comment mentioned the middle school math update, which is not on here, but I'm sure, and maybe it's in here, just not called out like that. But that's one topic, or things that might come up that people have an interest in checking in on. So if we say we're going to have an update in May on XYZ, we could put it in purple or red or some other color that, so people, when they come back to this, they could say, oh yeah, we're supposed to hear about that, even though it's not one of these set in stone topics.
I'm just going to follow that because that's so generally speaking, the agenda builder itself, I mean, for those who've been on, we've kind of used to the seasonality of things, right? We know when first interim comes up, we know when it's budget season, we know when we get data, we know when we have different updates about human resources. This to me, in terms of the agenda builder, that kind of shows the seasonality of when there are certain things that we have to deal with. We know HR, when it comes up and we have to talk about in February, we know that's part of it comes up. And so when I look at this, I see that those are the normal bread and butter things that we always have to deal with. And you see that in terms of when it theoretically should be brought to our attention. And so I think this is sort of like the baseline in some ways, right? But what Trustee Proctor was mentioning about math or about anything else that comes up, it might be helpful to actually put on in a different font and different color, something there so that people can actually see, oh yes, it is going to be talked about at a future date, right? And if this is up online, I think that's really helpful because people can kind of predict and say, oh, well, it's here because, and maybe it's because we need the additional data, maybe there's something, it gives staff time to actually do the research, whatever it is, it's actually there. So when things do come up offhand, because, ideally, well, I think we talk about math every like 3 years in some ways, but I mean, generally speaking, different topics come up and we could plug them in. So I would agree with both Trustee Proctor's and Trustee Watkins' comments. I think those are great comments. One thing is that what I like about this agenda builder is the one that we used to have online before was in some ways very convoluted. It was by department and by division. And, unless you were in the know, like all of us who deal with it all the time, you wouldn't know, oh, what is student services? Or you wouldn't know where things would sort of flow. It was just too big and too massive. This is sort of a much more user-friendly document where you could just pull up and you can see. With the exception that we are all used to sort of the alphabet soup that I would say of the school districts, right? We have so many acronyms, so many different things where people might not understand what LCAP is. And so when I look at this and like in a user-friendly document, for some parent who may not be paying attention to our board meetings, it might be good to have like on the bottom a glossary or something where definitions where it says LCAP, Local Control and Accountability Plan, right? There's something and it says like, this is what it is, right? So if somebody really wanted to know about, you know, let me see, school climate update, right? I mean, there's a little description about what it is so that people have some idea like, oh, this is what they're actually going to be talking about. So, I mean, it's one of those things that I think we all get used to, sort of the alphabet soup that we use and all the different acronyms. But when you look at some document that may be front facing to the public and might be something that people who aren't used to the school system for the first time, they may like, what is that? And so I think that might be helpful. And the other two comments I have are just around December and July. So December looks pretty heavy. Normally, I mean, usually, and this can change, but it tended to be more ceremonial. We usually have the changing of positions, and it tends to be fairly light. This does look like a heavier meeting, but if that's where we had to put it, that's fine. That's what we have to do. The other comment is about July. Prior to COVID and prior to that one summer when we were meeting every single week until like 2 in the morning, we kind of took July off. I think it was a moment for all of us to sort of refresh at the board level and sort of get away. You know, in general, our school district, because we're on a modified schedule or a non-traditional sort of calendar, we only have 8 weeks. Sometimes it was 7, sometimes it was 9, but generally it's about 8 weeks of summer. And so the idea, I know that July tends to be when everyone goes and refreshes. And so I know we have 3 things listed there, but I'm not opposed to it, but I just want to bring it up that historically that has been a time of sort of a moment to refresh. So other than that, I think, you know, I'm really happy that we have this. I think that we put it up sooner on the website, the better. I think it'd be great to have a little description of it with the understanding that this is sort of the baseline and that things that come up, whether it's math or whether it's, what about TK, or, you know, the sky is purple instead of blue, you know, whatever it is, that we can kind of plug it in generally with the caveat that of course it can move or something else. But those are my comments, but thank you for this.
President Chin, if I could recommend to the board, we do have another meeting this month, October 21st. I would actually like to take some time to add some of those descriptions, to make some of the modifications and to bring it back as an agenda item at our 10/21 meeting, to give the board an opportunity to see it more fully fleshed out with some more specificity on when those presentations would happen, to include an additional student achievement presentation, an additional special education presentation, and to have our very talented communication specialist, Diego Perez, help me make this look very beautiful, which he will definitely succeed at doing. I went for the black and white with the very simple text, but he's gonna make it look real pretty and easier to take in. So.
Thank you for that, Superintendent Ochoa. So I didn't see there's usually a little V on the calendar, but this is actually asking for us to approve it. So, and I'm going to wait for other comments from many of the rest of the board, but we will have to, I guess, make a motion to continue this item to the next meeting. Okay. Any other comments from the rest of the board? Oh. No? Okay. No. All right. So would anyone like to make a motion to continue this item?
Motion to continue this item at the next meeting.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Watkins for the motion. Trustee Warren for the second. Roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I will just as well. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 10.2.
Thank you, President Chin. Item 10.2 is a review of school visitations. Let me pull it up here. The San Mateo Foster City School District Board of Trustees has engaged in school visitations each of the last 2 school years that function as special Board of Trustee meetings. The proposed visitation calendar would initiate these school visitations typically on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Many months, the last Tuesday of the month. These meetings give the board an opportunity to visit sites, to hear from school administration regarding trends at the site, regarding achievement at the site, regarding plans, areas of celebration, areas of continued work. The calendar has, in some cases, the visitations take place earlier in the month, such as November and December, and that's because of our breaks each of those months. And then at the end of the year, wanting to get a visitation in the beginning of May and at the end of May, to avoid having a school visitation the last week of school, which I think every principal will thank you for not doing that. So that's why May has the 2 visitations at the end of that month. So I wanted to present this publicly. We do plan to agendize these meetings and place them on the school board page or the Board of Trustees page. And with that, I'll open for any comments or questions from the public or the board.
Great, thank you, Superintendent Ochoa. Any clarifying questions? No. Okay. Any members from the public audience, live audience? Sorry, thank you for shaking your head. Peter, if you wouldn't mind opening public comment for those who are online.
Yes, any members online that would like to make comment on agenda item 10.2, the school board visitation dates, please use the raise your hand functionality within Zoom now. President Chin, we have no hands for public comment.
Great, thank you. I'm going to officially close public comment on this item, and this is just as an informational item. So does anyone have any comments, anything they want to add? Trustee Proctor?
I just wanted to say that I'm really looking forward to, can you hear me first of all? Sorry. Looking forward to getting back to these school visitations. We did them in person and then we did them online, and it's really going to be nice to get a chance to go back on campus and see kids in classrooms and all the great things that are happening. I was just looking, and I'm wondering if 3 in one day is going to be hard to do, but you know, it is what it is. It might be a long day.
Yeah, I wanted to add that while it's absolutely important for us to visit schools, I would like to propose that maybe we have part of those visits be really open to like us popping into classrooms and not having it be like predetermined. I think that's important to do so that we can kind of get like a really clear picture of, you know, what happens on a normal day-to-day, because when we do schedule them ahead of time, it's, you know, it's a little different, right, than just like popping in. I do think that's important for us to be able to do going forward. So I was just wondering how our board felt about that idea, like maybe half of it, kind of like in the typical fashion of what we used to do, where it's like a presentation. And I'd also really love to like incorporate like rubrics for what we see when we go visit classrooms. Maybe like equity rubrics, like maybe we can like look at like certain things across school sites, like math instruction, or, you know, whatever we agree on. Go ahead.
So yes, I agree with, I would love, I know we've had this conversation before in terms of kind of like how to make school visits a little bit more structured in terms of like having a focus. I believe we should wait on that and align it to kind of strategic planning and have a really clear, and have our teachers, our staff like on board with kind of what that is versus, I think there's just been a lot of change. People are just like getting back into the swing of things. And so I think like having structured visits is great. It's something I wanted us to do for a really long time. I just think the alignment and timing of when that happens is important. So I would love for us to kind of think about like that being, not that it's an accountability piece, but just for us to have a pulse, right? Like just for us to kind of, okay, these are the things we're saying we're doing. Like, how are we seeing that? How can we support, you know? So I agree in terms of hopping into classrooms. Yeah, I think, I mean, I feel like it's probably a pretty big shift. Like I know for so long, it's always been like this very specific structure and people know. So I'd be interested, I mean, I would love to see us get there. I just, again, wonder like what the timing looks like and how we work with our, yeah, just what the timing looks like with something like that, like really changing the structure and making sure that people feel like we've given them enough notice and like all of that to know like, hey, it's going to be changing. And because I would love for us to get to a place where it's not even like only on site visits, right? It's like, oh, I happen to be by Fiesta Gardens. Like, I just want to pop in and say, hey, and I'm going to like whatever, right? So, but I feel like we're pretty far from that right now in terms of what we've done in the past. The other thing that made me think about is I know we tried to move towards visits where we didn't only talk to the administrators, where there was like space that was open for teachers and staff to come and talk to us. And I'm trying to think like, where does that fit into this? Because I think that's important, right? It's can't just be like, we have a meeting with administrators and then we're going into people's classrooms and like, they never get to say anything to us or have conversation with us. So I'm just curious how that fits into this.
I think for me, so where I work in the profession that I'm in, we get unannounced joint commission visits. Like we have to be like permanently on our ready. So honestly, Trustee Corzo, my heart stopped when I heard you mention that. And I think that was just the knee-jerk reaction that I have to joint commission. And it almost, I would hate for our teachers to feel that way. I'm also thinking in terms of some of our students can't handle that disruption. And I would hate for the class to get derailed. Not to say that in the future it couldn't happen in some way, shape, or form. But I think we would have to flesh that out. I would love to have an opportunity to talk with just teachers and site staff as well as administrators, just to get a feel and a flavor for each individual campus, because we have 21 different campuses with 21 different communities. And each community has its own uniqueness about it. And we're in this fortunate position to be able to get to visit each one of those. So I think that's where I would like to learn more about each school on my visits, would be to get a feel for just what that community is like and how that community supports those, just how do they create that safety net of a community? How do they create just that community within their school?
So I'll chime in. I don't know if I've said this to you guys, but I know you probably feel the same way. Is like the school site visits is like the best thing, the best perk in some ways that we have on as part of our job here. Seeing the kids learn, walking into the classrooms, seeing everything is really it's fantastic. And so we have done so many different things over the years regarding our school visits, where I don't think we have settled on what is the best thing. We used to meet like one school and it was a school visit, then it was a board meeting, then it was another school visit, then another board meeting. And we essentially were meeting every week. We've narrowed down to 2 schools in 1 month. And that's good. We've gone online because of COVID, and that has had a different aspect to it. We have gone early, so we catch the teachers before school starts, and we usually brought them little breakfast treats. We have also stayed later during lunchtime and sort of brought some other treats there, so that there's an availability for us to talk to the staff and hear from them and ask them questions and sort of get to know them on a different level. I think that there's lots of different ways we can do this, and lots of variety of ways of how we do it. What makes it difficult, and when you talk to other school districts, some of them don't even get to the campuses. They don't actually go and visit. And I'm like, how do you not go visit your actual schools? Because again, it's like the best part of our job, to seeing the kids learn, to going there and looking over their shoulder, seeing how they're learning, seeing what's going on, seeing how classrooms are set up and how teachers are. I mean, it's the best thing in the world. So where I'm coming at is that we now have 21 schools. There's only really 10, maybe 9 months that we come and do the visits. Obviously, we have a list here where there are some days we're visiting 3 schools, which is a lot. I think these dates are fine. I would think that maybe what we need to do is just sort of be open and flexible in this next year as we're coming off of the pandemic to try and figure out what is our best way of visiting the schools. And honestly, during COVID, when we had these visits online and the teachers and the principals were able to present to us online, it was a different form, but yet there was some positive things out of that. So I'm not necessarily opposed to actually maybe mixing it up there too. I think it helps out when, maybe a principal can actually do something online, or maybe we start online, or maybe we finish online. But I think to be open about it till we kind of get into our groove, until the pandemic sort of settles, I think would be my thought at the moment. I do like the idea. In the past, we did have themes in some ways. We talked about student achievement. We talked about Fontes and Pinnell. We talked about different things. We looked at data. And I think those are all really good things. At the moment, as we start to go back to it, I would just want to be open and kind of see what works and doesn't work at the moment. But I figure that by the time we get to January, March, or January, February, we'll definitely be in our groove, and maybe it might be a little bit more structured at a point, maybe. But I'm kind of open to, I'm just really glad that we're going to start these things up again, and just kind of open to how we actually go about it. So, any other comments? Superintendent Choa, do you have everything you need? I see the thumbs up. Okay, great. You're not on mute, by the way. You could have answered. Okay. All right. So let's move on. We are almost done. Item number 11, board member statements and requests for future agenda items. Does any board member want to make any statement or make any requests? No, I see shaking heads. No, nothing. Okay. I have 2 things I'm just going to mention. One thing that everyone should be aware of is that the city of San Mateo on Monday, October, I think it's 18th. Sorry, my computer went to sleep here. On October 18th, there's going to be a study session, or at least it's proposed at the moment, to look at school speed zones. So in the California Vehicle Code, there is an allowance that allows speed limits to be reduced from 25 down to 15 near schools. I think that I was definitely going to attend, and if this is something where we all agree, we might want to agendize this at a future later date to actually maybe write a letter of recommendation regarding this. Obviously, when we talk about school safety, safe routes to school, we all have had historically, there have been accidents near our schools. Not always at the fault of one party or another, but when we think about safety, this may be one tool in the toolkit to help reduce collisions. So just want to bring that up. Lastly, I'll just mention, I know we want to get out of here, but I am dressed in orange and black, and I have my hat. And I know that for all of you, I'm sorry for any Southern California fans, but I'm just going to say go Giants, and we need to beat LA. So those are my comments. Oh, I guess I need to continue. Sorry. Sorry.
You can't drop the mic. You can't drop the mic.
No, I know. It's future meeting dates. Superintendent Choa.
October 21st and November 4th.
Fantastic. And then we are in adjournment. Does anyone want to make an motion for adjournment?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Thank you, Trustee Proctor, for the motion, and Trustee Watkins for the second. Roll call vote. Trustee Corzo.
Yes.
Trustee Proctor.
Yes.
Trustee Watkins.
Yes.
Trustee Warren.
Yes.
And I'll vote yes as well. When we are adjourned at 8:41 in the evening. Thank you, everyone, for attending.